Hi, I'm Leapfrog.
Hello, my name is Welcome to LogansStory. Today we'll talk about the Civil Rights Movement in the 1960s. Thank you for coming. Let's get into it. The Civil Rights Movement was a nonviolent effort by Black Americans to end racial discrimination and gain equal rights under the law. It began in the late 1940s and ended in the late 1960s. Alright, so this being it so, what does the huge signification of the 1960s hold? Well, civil rights, with many leaders such as Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, and so many more. So many more. So many educators, so many arbitrators, so many scientists, so many leaders beyond belief helped in the sense of what would be now as the civil rights movement. But here's the thing, and the big thing that should be taken away from this is the idea of fighting over pleasure. Fighting for what you believe in is not pleasurable. It takes time. It takes ordinance. It takes these hands to do what you gotta do. By violence or peace. See, the thing is, when you're living in a life of trying to fight for what you believe in, i.e. the civil rights movement, i.e. the Jim Crow laws, i.e. from stopping African Americans and other ethnicities from getting where they need to be in terms of this big idea of freedom. Freedom is something that people need. Anything that you can do to gaze that freedom, to get that freedom, is, well, miraculous. But in little nooks and crannies, what does this all mean? What does this mean for the little things that actually matter in the big spectrum? Well, to view those details, let's go into detail. Okay, so the biggest thing you should take away from the 1960s is this. People fought for what they believed in. Whether it was marching, freedom riders, or even people sitting in the front of the buses to protest, there's a lot of things that go into implementation on trying to figure out what civil rights is. What is civil rights? Well, the thing is, when you live in a life of luxury and you don't really have that much to fight over, it can be hard to understand the history, especially if you're in a classroom where you have to talk about it. And there's maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 black people in the room that really know about it. Whether it be police brutality or not being able to vote in terms of what section says about voting. There's a lot of things that were implemented against the blacks or African Americans or Negroes or whatever you want to call them. Being a black person myself, I tend to agree with a lot of things that the black people say. But there are some things I don't agree with. And those things seem to be getting in way of what freedom is. So let's put that all behind us. Because the thing is, with a team, you can start something bigger and better than ever before. You can start something of a troop, a triumph, a group, a team. Remember the Titans. Remember the Titans. Because here's the thing. When you remember something out of that movie, what was one of the biggest takeaways? If we end up like them, we'll be destroyed, just as they were. Those are famous words from Denzel Washington. And just because we have all these limits of, especially in that time, limits to us, we chose to fight over those limits, expound above them, and become the greater people that we are today. So, in all, what does this mean for you and me? Black, white, Asian, Middle Eastern, Mexican. What does this mean for you and I? In terms of freedom, in terms of color, in terms of a new beginning? Well, application, of course. So, freedom. There's a bunch of things going on today that would expunge about the freedom. There's a bunch of things going on right now in terms of news that will expunge about the freedom. But what do we do to derail that and make a new way for a different path? We have to make sure that freedom is within all of us. And with things like sex trafficking, harsh labor forces taking over people, and just things under the ground scope. What is freedom? Freedom is stepping outside and not being afraid to step outside. Not being afraid to soak in the sun, the snow, the sleet, the rain, and take on the day. But what does that mean for you and I? Color. So, it doesn't matter what color you are, just as long as you love. See, if we can embrace who we are, embrace that I am a young black man in a world that may not like young black men, or a young white man who's trying to figure out what in the world is going on with himself and the people around him, or a Middle Eastern guy, or a Pacific Islander, or an Asian person. It doesn't matter what color you are, we all go through troubles. We all poop. We all bleed red. We all do things that are naturally the same. Although we're not naturally the same in terms of our culture, we're naturally the same There's other things like family, friends, school, taxes, all that stuff come into mind. But here's the thing. What can we do to make new beginnings? Well, here's the thing. We accept what we did in the past as something in the past. We don't take it on as a future reference to use against people. We take it on to make sure we know never to do it again. And with this election year, as a new president, we need to make sure that more than ever, we can take the freedoms that we have and use them to our benefit. Know the law, know the Constitution, and know the books that became one and all in terms of information for us to take in as American people. Whether it be Frederick Douglass, or Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, or any of these other people that you could possibly name on a possible spectrum, they're all helpful in terms of what we know now as America today. But here's the thing. What are you doing? What are you doing as an individual to make sure America stays the same? Because in this time, there's a lot of people fighting for that one notion. Freedom. Freedom rings over the hills and the mountains. That's the thing. Freedom rings over the valleys and the lakes. That's the thing. Do we want to keep that, or do we want to throw it away? Don't throw away what we have. Otherwise, you can't go to Disneyland, you can't go to the grocery store, you can't buy a car, you can't get a house. You are at whim of being in internal slavery, whether it be in the mind or the body. Step away and run away from that. And I promise you, there's freedom beyond all realms. And people in the 50s and 60s really noticed that. They noticed that segregation was not the answer. The freedom riders noticed that segregation was not the answer. So non-freedom must not be the answer either. We need to maintain our freedoms, and we need to maintain ourselves. So make sure you know that everything we do as Black people, as white people, as Asians, as Pacific Islanders, as Middle Easterns, as West Indies, as Caribbeans, as any other thing that you could possibly imagine. African, Canadian, Russian, anything that you could possibly make of it. Freedom, color, and expanding on new chapters is the end goal here. So, in total, make sure you know what freedom is. Make sure to stand up for your color, know how beautiful it is, and expound beyond belief on new chapters and new beginnings. Thank you for coming to my application. Let's continue forward. Thank you for coming to LogansStory. Thank you for coming to this pop culture history highlight. There are more highlights in the future, so keep an eye out for those. Also, the mission is 1,000 subscribers. You guys know me, get the button, the share, like, and subscribe button right on the screen. Also by hitting that bell. Thank you again, and peace.